Hello there, it's Phil Kane here. I'm a journalist who covers alcohol, and I believe that by having an intelligent discussion around alcohol, we can hope to produce positive change. It's tempting to think that a discussion around alcohol is a cool new thing, but it isn't. It's been going on for generations. And one organisation has been doing it for much longer than most, and that's Movendi. It changed its name last month from IOGT, and I have their chief executive, Katarina Spekova, online to talk about it more. Good morning. Thanks for coming on, Christina.
Good morning, Phil. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. You're the president of an organisation, henceforth known as Movendi. It's a very old organisation. I understand it's about 170 years old. Are you kind of surprised by the level of interest there is at the moment in alcohol? You know, this is an older organisation, but there feels like there is something in the air around this topic at the moment.
No, I'm not surprised. I think the interest should be even higher. I think the interest that is now on the rise is caused also by our organization and organizations alike that have also learned how to talk about alcohol, how to talk about alcohol policy, and also it's connected also to the general understanding and awareness of people's, in a way, rights. Because alcohol, when we are talking about alcohol problems, that was a very often taboo. So we knew about anonymous alcoholics, but then there were not many other solutions to the problem. And now we can also see, in a way, boom in coming out as a person who had a problem with alcohol and being confident in talking about it and sharing with others. So I would say that there are these two, no, I wouldn't call it trends, but the two happenings. And then also talking about health is becoming also a topic, and the science that is providing more and more facts about the negative impacts of alcohol on human body is again yet another element that contributes to that. But having on mind how much harm alcohol causes to the user, to the people around, to the society, I don't think that alcohol is being discussed enough.
Okay. So there's more to be done in this area, you think? And your organisation, it was called IOGT until last month, beginning of last month, I understand. Could you and now it's called Movendi. Could you perhaps explain why this change has been made and what it signifies in terms of the future of your organisation and where you see this wider discussion about alcohol developing in the future?
Yeah, so the change has started very long time ago. Already in 2002, the organization had an ambition to change the name that didn't go through. Back then, because we are a movement, we consist of around 137 organizations right now. I don't remember how many exactly we were in 2002, but still, you know, like these changes are not happening only on the level of the management, but all the members need to accept it. So back then it didn't go through, but it was it was a tight decision. And then since then, we've been working a lot on rebranding the organization, as the history, as important as it is, and the impact that the movement had back in the history cannot be forgotten. But the connection and also just the understanding of what the organization was has been lost, and also the members nowadays do not understand because the organization was called International Organization of Good Templars, but there are very few members in the organization that understand what Good Templar is. They have never been part of any order, let's say. So the organization has changed, and the name change was actually lagging behind for many years. And then as a first solution in 2006, the organization has changed the name already from International Organization of Good Templars into IOGT. So IOGT became a word, but that was very difficult to explain, and it still looked the same. So of course it looks like an acronym. People were asking what it is. we didn't have any good answer. we were saying it's a name, it's like I don't know, IKEA or something else, and people would be still wondering, but okay, but there has to be some explanation to that. And or they would be googling and then they would find Good Templar, so it was connected. But nowadays we were not even able to explain Good Templar and how that worked. So then we understood that we really need to move away from that name, with the respect to the history and also to the lifestyle of the members, because the very typical characteristic of all the members is that it's the members are living alcohol-free life. So, and that's how we ended up then with Movendi, which is a connection of two words over Latin expression, modus vivendi, so a way of life.
Okay. I'm one of the people who has Googled this, your organization, and, the Wikipedia page and various other sort of references talk about a fraternal organization akin to the Masons. And in my mind, there is this sort of rights and regalia, aprons and funny handshakes and these sort of things. That side of the history, does that exist anymore within the organization?
It was part of the organization. I have never experienced it as a member, and I have been active in the organization since 1999. I understand that some of the member organizations that are completely independent from the umbrella, because we are more of an umbrella organization now. So some of the organizations that have the history in IOGT have, for example, some rituals. They are very few. I would count them on one hand, but they still do it. And what is important in this case to also mention is that those rituals, they are for them important as a part of the recovery process, because the members that have been joining this organization, they used to have alcohol problems. And one solution for them was to find structure. And the rituals would be providing this structure. Plus, the rituals would also contribute to equality in the organization. So from that perspective, they treasure it. And as the members that have gone through this process, they really want to keep it and they are following it. But as I said, it's less and less. It's also that these organizations nowadays have problems to find new members. It doesn't speak to other people, but historically it was important for them, and then those few ones, they are keeping it. I don't know about secret or like funny handshakes and the regalia. That's also very rare. Some of them might have it and they have candles lit and such as a part of the ritual, but I don't know about any secret things that used to be or like that I have heard of or read about, but I have never experienced that.
So, as I understand it, your organization was sort of directly having members, but now its emphasis is now in having other organizations to become a member. So they have their own system of governance, and then they are a member of your organization as an umbrella in terms of the alcohol overview you give.
Exactly. Then, like in the beginning, when the organization was established in 1851 in the US, then the people were connected directly, and it was not called international organization. But when it started spreading and then it became an international organization, already then it was, as back then it was the organization that helped to start the organizations in different countries. But in a very long history, it became an umbrella organization, and the authority of the international organization has been removed. So there is really no interference in anything that the member organizations are doing.
So in terms of the goals of your organization now, it's more to bring together more, other local organizations under your umbrella, as opposed to necessarily building up individual members.
Absolutely, yes. We are. It's also very ineffective and in a way really costly process to build members and to find individuals. There is a possibility for individuals to become members directly in the international umbrella if they do not have a local or national organization, or for some reason do not want to belong to the local organization. But we are not taking any active steps in finding individual members. What we do is, when we understand that there's a group of people in a country that would like to start an organization, but they do not know how, and the organization would like to follow our example, then we help them to establish an organization or assist them. Let's put it that way.
Okay, I looked on your website, and I think from the page there that there's 137 member organizations in 56 countries. Maybe that figure has changed in recent months, I don't know. But can you give some examples of these organizations, some maybe that people have heard of?
Yeah, the organizations are really of very broad variety. So we have organizations that are sobriety organizations. For example, in Scandinavia, we have big ones, like the organizations have 25,000 members, and they are promoting alcohol-free lifestyle as the core of their activity. And they are working with advocating for alcohol policy that is effective and is actually aligned with WHO's recommendation. But then we have also organizations that are, like, for example, youth organizations, where it actually should be a natural thing to create alcohol-free environments for young people. But these organizations are specifically also committed to creating the alcohol-free environments for youth, also for many different reasons. So some young people have already had problems and need to find some space where they are not exposed to alcohol and other drugs all the time, which in many societies we experience. And then there are many young people who are growing up with parents who have alcohol problems and would like to find some safe spaces where they can actually rest from that problem, at least for a while. And then we have organizations that are dealing with children, which is similar in the youth to youth organizations, but here again they are creating again alcohol-free environments. They are teaching them to democracy and to active participation. There are several organizations that are like youth clubs that have understood that whatever they have been doing for young people to empower them, which is their main mission, it has been met with problems when young people were consuming alcohol. So the effort put into young people has not been, it didn't pay off in a way because of alcohol problems or some kind of deactivation of young people because of alcohol. So then they understood, okay, we really need to actually work with alcohol issue and raise awareness about the real effects of alcohol and the expectations that young people have around it and the whole culture and how it influences them to use alcohol, sometimes even despite the fact that they are not interested in using alcohol. And then we have also many organizations in the global south, let's put it that way, that are also working on building society. And it reminds us very much the situation in 1851 in the US and in Europe a little bit later, where the organizations, while trying to build their communities and the community resilience, they again understand, okay, alcohol is a problem. So we have an organization that works with hygiene and access to clean water. And then when they were dealing with that and actually teaching people some basic hygiene things, they again understood, like, the people wouldn't come to meetings because they were using alcohol somewhere in the village. So then they would need to first take care of that, and then they would build their capacity when it comes to hygiene and access to clean water. So it's a really very broad variety, and it's a huge organizations, as I mentioned, like 25,000 members, and then there we have organizations with 15, 20 members. It's student organizations as well. So And of course, I didn't mention that, but we have also very many organizations that have people in recovery, in treatment and recovery. So that's another very strong category within our movement.
And you mentioned there the Global South. I think from reading your material that one of your emphasis is on alcohol as an issue within development. Could you maybe, I mean, you've touched on a few issues there, but could you explain how alcohol can have, in your view, a negative effect on the development of a country?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing how to explain it is the analysis of Sustainable Development Goals that have been adopted in 2015, and I think are somehow making their way into people's awareness. And the countries should be at this time, after 5 years since the adoption, be actively working with it. So when we look at the goals, they are 17. And the goals, there is everything possible. So it's everything from eradicating poverty and hunger to reaching gender equality, providing education for all, decent jobs, sustainable economic growth. Also, there are goals that are connected to environment. So again, sustainability in the environmental sphere, clean water, and land, and then also some kind of partnership between in the governance between different parts of the sector. So it's really looking on a very, again, broad spectrum of what needs to be achieved if we want to do something for sustainable development and in a way turn around the current development. And then when we look at those 17 goals then and make the analysis, then we understand that 14 out of those 17 goals are negatively impacted by alcohol harm. So, and we can go, if you look at the poverty, for example, and it's a little bit connected to what I've been already mentioning, but especially in poor families, there is so much money spent on alcohol that it's difficult to get out of poverty. Or even when we are in countries that are getting now over the like where the social economic development is improving, we can also see like those that have just got over the poverty limit and have better income. That income is then being spent on alcohol, and it's also connected to the marketing practices of the alcohol industry that is actually targeting these countries where they see a huge potential in the purchase power or force. So, for example, that would be the poverty. Then if you look at gender equality, then we again see like how much gender-based violence, for example, is connected to alcohol use. And it's a direct connection in a way. So then again, we look at the marketing and the sexualization and objectification of women, and we look out at some alcohol commercials. It's just mind-blowing how that is possible still in this century. So they also like what kind of culture and understanding is created by alcohol industry and how that hinders then the development towards gender equality. Then when we look at, for example, the use of water and how much water is spent for production of alcohol like beer and wine, there is a huge amount of water spent on them. It's like hundreds of liters on a liter of alcohol. In the countries where there are drains and like when there is no water and the communities are really suffering, and in the same country alcohol is produced and being exported to Western countries where we are then enjoying our glass of wine or something. So it's like it's on very many different very many different areas where alcohol is impacting the development.
I looked on your literature around the rebranding, and one of the things you unveiled at that time, I believe, is a slogan which includes the term alcohol prevention. and it was a little bit unclear to me and maybe some other people what that meant. Is it to prevent the production of alcohol, prevent the consumption of alcohol? Is it a prohibitionistic kind of statement in other terms? It's just a little bit unclear to know what that means.
Thank you. That's a good question. That's like we actually perceive alcohol prevention as a very broad term. And what we are talking about is to reduce harm caused by alcohol or prevent the harm caused by alcohol. It's definitely not a prohibitionist term. It's not forbidding alcohol in the whole society. It's more about the approaches that will reduce the consumption of alcohol, so we avoid the harm. And there we can see it like it's classical prevention, and we imagine like going to schools and creating these alcohol-free environments, as I've talked about in the beginning. But it's also alcohol policy measures that have the best impact, like the three best buys on the consumption and consequently on the harm that we can then see in the society, whether it's public health, whether it's economic harm, or like a social harms, which is also part of the public health then, or also democratic harm, where we can see the interference of the industry in the democratic processes, or in democracies, or preventing democracies. And then also the prevention is also treatment and recovery. So under this alcohol prevention, we actually include also as I said, recovery, because as soon as people are treated and recover, they are again creating alcohol-free space around them. And of course, they are reducing the harm on them and the harm that has been created by their use. But at the same time, they are creating alcohol-free environments that then also influence the people around them.
And I mean, this is an interesting issue. I think a lot of people who rethink their alcohol consumption one way or the other, cut down or they quit. There is this divisive element to alcohol in that it's a personal habit which somehow may be interpreted as having a judgmental aspect on what other people are doing. Is there a way to sort of square this issue where you can kind of make a personal choice as you're advocating to not drink and do it in a way which doesn't sort of exclude other people who may drink from this conversation about a substance?
I think that the personal choice is everyone's personal choice, really, and we actually do not have any opinion, or we do not interfere into people's personal choices. For what is important for us is the environment and the society, what the society offers to people. And if people are bombed by alcohol marketing, and if alcohol is made a natural part of every part of our lives or in the society, that is what is a problem. And it's a problem for several reasons. It's a problem because we know that some people already have alcohol problems and would really benefit from alcohol-free environments and have no chance to benefit from it. It's also a problem because there are many people who actually do not want to use alcohol, even though they have never had any problem. But they feel that they should because it's expected or it's there, and it's all the time communicated in that way that it should be. So the consumption would be lower if we have the measures that we know are effective in place. But how people decide in the end with their own consumption and whether they will have a glass of wine once a year or every day or never, that is not our business. Why our members are alcohol free, there are very many different reasons. But of course, one of them is that some of them had their problems and there is no other way to deal with that. Then there are members who really do not want to support the business or the industry, not even with a single cent. So they will never purchase that, and they don't want to promote that kind of culture. And then there are also members who are really aware of the problems of other people, and they want to be that safe space themselves and create it around their person. So as I said, there are really many different ways, and those are personal choices. And what the organization is dealing with is more societal solutions.
And I mean, just a final question. I mean, it's obviously a long history, 170 years. Is this a moment where things are about to change, or is this, is there another 170 years to go with much the same kind of story being told?
I have a very strong belief that this is about to change, and I've been working in this field since 1999 in different levels and from different positions. I think it has already changed, and it's again, what is very interesting to follow or to look at is also what people do and what people say. And I think already there is is difference. And if you have conversations with people about their alcohol consumption, very often we hear, and what we haven't heard before is it's more natural just to not to choose alcohol very often. And it's again, and this is bringing us the whole circle back. As I said in the beginning, like there is more and more evidence that there is actually no safe amount of alcohol. So why would people just do it? And then the discourse around alcohol is also changing, understanding what is the real effect and what is the expected effect of alcohol, and how can we how that impacts our consumption. Because if people understand that they are actually funny, or that they can be social, or they can be sad without holding a glass, or without pouring ethanol into themselves, then they have no reasons to use it or take it. And then when the also on the policy level, we see there are changes, and in my opinion, in the right direction, but that's not so obvious, because we have different countries having strong opinions about the effective measures. But I would see that there is also a positive, I would say that there is a positive development.
Thank you very much for that. It's been very, very useful to know. And there's perhaps some reasons to be cheerful. And thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This was really fun.